Welcome back to episode number 9 of the Press Box Podcast. In today's episode, we are joined by former Maryville High School football coach George Quarles, who was recently named offensive coordinator for the Furman football program in South Carolina. So it's going to be good. We're going to talk a little bit about his transition from high school to college, as well as just his childhood and growing up in Jefferson County, and his athletic career and how he became a coach, and get his thoughts on some of the college football issues of the day as well. So stick with us, and we will get right to the Quarles interview after I talk about our sponsor, Bonus Room Art. So head to bonusroomart.com, as we've been saying, to pick up art prints and inquire about custom artwork, and be sure to follow them on Instagram at Bonus Room Art. Without further ado, let's get to Coach George Quarles.
We're joined now by legendary high school coach, or former high school coach, I will say, George Quarles, now the offensive coordinator for the Furman Paladins. And Coach Quarles, it's great to have you on the podcast.
Great to be here, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it should be fun. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we're excited to have you. And before we get started, I want to tell everybody something that they probably already know, but that they may not. Coach Quarles spent 18 years as the head coach at Maryville High School. He compiled an ungodly record of 250 wins and 16 losses. His teams went to the playoffs all 18 seasons, went to the semifinals 17 of those seasons, made it to the title game 15 of those seasons, and of course won 11 state championships. And Coach, I know that you and I have known each other for a long time, and I know you're not one to be into personal accolades, but now that you've been away from high school for a year or so, have you had a chance to kind of, reflect upon what you were able to accomplish there?
Well, when you were reading those off, I was like, wow, hadn't thought of it that way. But, we were certainly able to have a good run. You kind of wondered when it was going to end. When you got that job, or when we got that job, you wanted the chance to play for a state championship. Everybody just hopes to get one, and
right.
Then you get a second one and a third one. And it just kept going. And then you were just really, I hate to say afraid, but you're just nervous that it was going to end, or it was going to slip somehow. But once it gets rolling, and you guys know this, it starts to kind of run itself in a lot of ways. We had kids and players that just really, it mattered to them. We, even to this day, I'll talk about the Maryville kids, and at Furman, we got Furman kids, but they're the same kind of kid that it matters to them. And they're not all 5-star athletes, but they're extremely talented and are willing to buy into the team concept. And, that's probably the part I'm most proud of, is we were able to have kids that, sometimes put the team, or individual accolades, to the side a little bit and put the team ahead of those. And, and we were able to beat a lot of good teams, I think, because we had those kids that were willing to put the team before themselves.
Yeah, and a lot of times this as well as anybody else, you beat some teams that, looking at it on paper, probably shouldn't have beaten.
No question. And I think, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, let me ask you brought up a point there about the kids at Furman now. Talk about the differences a little bit, because as you said, at Maryville, you had kids growing up in the community, going to school, playing in the youth football, and eventually all they want to do is play for Maryville. That's what they grew up looking at. And college is
Sure.
a little different in how, these kids in high school, maybe they're in the state of South Carolina or North Carolina or that region, they have a lot of options, and they didn't grow up with their eye on one school. So how has that been different in not only recruiting, but just dealing with those kids and getting them to buy in like that?
Well, I don't think there's not a lot of them that grow up wanting to play for Furman,
Right,
that we
right.
end up now. The
Right.
guys we get, they wanted to play for Georgia or
Right.
Tennessee or South Carolina, Clemson, whatever it might be. But our niche is we've got to find those kids that are good football players who are really good students. And, that's the part that's sometimes tough. And we can get some kids, and Coach Hendricks talks about this all the time. We can take a kid that we can get him in school,
Right.
but the problem is getting him out of school, getting him graduated, because there's no place to hide at Furman, and we're proud of this. It makes it easier in some ways to recruit. Our pool is much smaller, but we can't mess around with some that aren't serious about school, and it's just a different animal academically. But we do have those kids. Like I said, they're the same kind of kids that we had at Maryville. Family's important to them. They come from good families. Education's obviously important to them, and they understand the importance of working hard and delayed gratification. It doesn't come easy for all of them. Some of them, they have to work at it. They don't come in and start right away as a freshman.
Yeah.
Some of them have to redshirt, all those things. But it's been a unique learning experience for me, just that transition. But there's so many similarities between what we had at Maryville and, what we're trying to get here at Furman.
Sure.
Let's switch gears a little bit, and I want to start by saying, South Carolina, where you're living, is a beautiful area. Many years ago, when you were still in elementary school, I used to live in Greenville, South Carolina.
Did you really?
And actually, I lived not far from Furman, up there where 25 intersects with South Main Street, close to the Travelers Rest area.
Yes,
so I'm familiar with
it. Sure.
Yeah, I'm familiar with it. And talk a little bit about that part of the country. I know you've lived here in East Tennessee for most of your life, and now you're back there in South Carolina. Talk a little bit about just that part of the country and some of the things that make it a very attractive area.
Well, I think one of the coolest things is its location. You're 2 hours from just about everywhere. You're 2 hours from Atlanta, 2 hours from Charlotte, 2 hours from Knoxville. Columbia is an hour and a half. You can get to the coast. We can get to Charleston in 3 hours, 3.5. I will say, it's not quite as pretty as maybe where we lived in Maryville, just because of the mountains.
Right.
We have mountains here, but they're not the same. But it is a beautiful place. I think it's the 10th fastest growing city in the country right now. I mean, the Greenville County area is almost 900,000. I saw some stat the other day. The downtown area is a destination area now. I mean, it's ranked as a top 10 downtown area in the country. However you want to look at those magazines.
Right.
But it really is. It's got a river walk downtown. The last year it hosted the first round of the NCAA tournament, and it was able to it had Duke, North Carolina, South Carolina. I'm trying to remember the other teams, but that was the tournament that South Carolina upset Duke. Right. In Greenville, and you could not find a ticket to that place. The arena there holds 18,000, and it was sold out, for all the games. And so it's a pretty unique place. I think it's Clemson is obviously close by.
Right.
I think Greenville's benefited, by being close to Clemson, and just all the excitement that has come along with Clemson and their success the last 3 years in football.
Right.
But great place. Like I said, my wife and I, this was the first place we lived when we first got married. From 93, we got married in 93, and then we moved to Maryville in 95. So this, in a lot of ways, was coming back home for us. My wife's from Anderson, which is fairly close by, 30 or 40 minutes from downtown Greenville. But it's a neat place. If you've never been to Greenville, South Carolina, you ought to come. Like I said, and if you hadn't been in a long time, it's changed so much. Because when I was at school at Furman in the 80s, you didn't go downtown. I mean, you didn't.
I remember that. I remember that.
Yeah. And now everybody wants to go downtown.
Yeah.
We have friends that come to town, and first thing we do, we take them downtown to Greenville. It's that nice.
Wow.
And all the restaurants and shops and, and all those places. And we feel like that's a huge advantage for us, in recruiting. We have a downtown to sell. When we bring in recruits on official visits, we keep them downtown. We show them the downtown. We sell that like crazy. And just feel like that's a big advantage for us recruiting wise.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you been out to see the Greenville Drive yet and the mini green monster out there?
We have. That thing is awesome. Jack, my oldest one, he's a Red Sox fan.
Yeah.
And, so we went to a couple of games last year, and we actually had our fan fest, for the Furman fan fest to kick off the season, I guess, in August. We had it at the Greenville Drive Stadium. And but what a great atmosphere, because it is literally downtown.
Yeah.
Greenville. If you hit a home run to left field, you can hit a apartment building. That is really more than an apartment. I guess it's condos that are really nice. Yeah. But it's a flourishing place down there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know you grew up in Jefferson City, right?
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about growing up. I mean, did you grow up in a sports family? I mean, was your dad and mom sports minded? What did you do as a kid? What kind of sports did you play? How did you get into the sporting area?
Well, that was, my dad was he played college baseball at Carson Newman, and he was a basketball coach. He was a really good high school basketball player, and then he coached at old Jefferson High School. Before it was consolidated into Jefferson County, there was Jefferson High School and then Amari and a restaurant and a White Pine. But he was the head coach at Jefferson High School. And from there, he became the athletic director at Jefferson County High School. So yeah, we were always into athletics, whatever was in season. It's football, basketball, baseball. And in that order, and whichever one was in season, that was your favorite one. And, but it was something we always did. My mom was not real athletic, but she was very supportive. And, I had a younger brother who's 3 years younger than me. We had quite a few battles, and then I had a younger sister who's 8 years younger than me. But, we were, when I was growing up, you didn't have Nintendo and Xbox and all the stuff that kids now have now. So you had to play.
That's right.
And we came up with games to play, whether it was, wall ball.
Right.
You played baseball with a tennis ball up against the wall.
Right.
We came up with just, football games with yourself, is tackling, we did some crazy stuff. I guess, looking back. We rode bikes without helmets.
Yeah.
We all did that. That's
okay.
Yeah.
They'd put you in jail for letting your kids do that now.
You sure would.
But that was a huge part of our lives was athletics, and I still pinch myself that I get paid to coach.
Yeah.
And get to be around it all the time.
Right.
So, but that's just what I've always done, and like I said, my dad to this day still. He doesn't miss many games, even at Furman. Like, he still goes to the Maryville games on Friday nights, and then he'd get up and drive a lot of times to wherever we were playing last year on Saturdays, which awesome. I think is really cool.
So
that is cool.
So for you growing up, heading into high school, and then at Jefferson County, at that time, what were they known for one sport over another? Like maybe kind of known as a football school or baseball, or what were they known in the community as?
We relatively new school. It consolidated in 77.
Okay.
And my sophomore year was 82. And they had never won the district title or other than maybe basketball. I think they'd done okay in basketball.
Right.
And in fact, I don't know if Ralph knows this or not, Geraldine Harper, she played basketball at Jefferson County High School. And that was when 3-on-3. They played girls 3-on-3. I can remember watching her score 60 points one night.
Was that when they couldn't cross midcourt?
Couldn't cross. Yeah, you had an offensive side and a defensive side, and a really unique game. But that was probably what Jefferson County was known for the most was girls basketball.
Okay, yeah.
And I'm telling you, she could shoot it. And she was good. And then when Coach Craig Kisbeth, he became the head coach at Jefferson County my sophomore year in 1982. And we went 12-1 that year. We got beat in the semifinals of the state. And we had never, like I said, they'd never been in the playoffs before. And at that time, one team went from your district. And we went undefeated in the regular season. We upset, I think, Oak Ridge in the second round, who at that time, that was the school, that was the powerhouse.
Right.
You couldn't hardly beat Oak Ridge.
Right.
We upset them in the second round, and huge for the school, for the community, obviously for our football program. But that was kind of, I think, a lot of ways, just a huge confidence builder for our whole community. And, from there, we played in the state title game my junior year, got beat. And then they won a state championship my brother's senior year in 1987.
Okay.
So that was the school's only state championship. And that was kind of what it was known for at that time was football.
Right.
But I'll be honest, my favorite sport growing up was probably basketball.
Really?
Okay.
And, like I said, it was whatever was in season. We played them all.
That's right.
And, we definitely didn't specialize.
Yeah.
We had our weight room, but we really didn't have a weight program.
Right.
It's something you did if you weren't in season,
Yeah.
but we were always in season. And I didn't play baseball. Let's see. I don't think I played my freshman year, maybe JV.
Yeah.
And then I just ran track
Right.
my sophomore, junior, and senior years.
Wow.
But like I said, sports that's what we did. We weren't playing. We
Right.
went to watch games. And if we weren't watching them, we found them, the one game or so on the TV per week.
Yeah.
That was it, right? One game a week.
Yeah, it was a big deal. Monday Night Football.
Right.
I remember growing up when I was little, my dad would let us watch the kickoff. And then we had to go to bed.
Yeah.
And then we got to watch the first quarter when we got a little older.
Yeah.
But that was there just weren't many options like you have today, to either watch games or play games on video or that kind of stuff. So you had to entertain yourself.
Right.
You bring up, that's a really good point because you look at from that same standpoint. When you and I were growing up, especially me, because I'm quite a bit older than you, but, the only teams you saw on TV once a week were either Oklahoma, Notre Dame,
Sure.
Alabama, Southern Cal, Michigan. So the Furmans of the world, for lack of a better example, I mean, those kids knew they were never going to be on TV. But
Exactly.
Today, so many more schools get on TV that it's a recruiting point for a lot of these schools because the kids have a chance to play in front of a TV audience.
Right.
That's exactly right. And, I remember before church, Lindsey Nelson doing
Yes.
the Notre Dame replay.
Yeah.
Move to further action in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, moving on to further action. That's right. So that was what you saw on TV. I can remember Vegas Ferguson and some of those guys that that because that's the only ones you'd heard of.
Yeah,
and
right.
You had to find out. Like I remember we got Sports Illustrated, and that's how you read and found out about people all across the country because you didn't have a sports center,
right.
or you didn't have all the other stuff that you have now. So,
Right. So as you began to finish up high school, going into your senior year and finishing up your last football season, what was your mindset in terms of playing in college, and what were some of the maybe schools you were looking at, and kind of what came down to making you choose Furman?
I had some offers. Carson Newman.
Yeah.
I was good friends with Chad Sparks, and I grew up around Coach Sparks, and he wanted me to come. I was actually a quarterback my senior year in high school, and he wanted me to come play quarterback at Carson Newman, and to run the Veer stuff, and.
Right.
And I don't think I was a quarterback, obviously. And I think my parents really, felt like it'd been a good idea for me to get away from Jefferson County.
Right.
That's the only thing I'd ever known. And, and I had a UTC offer, I got to go on an official visit to Tennessee. They didn't offer.
Right.
But, so I had a few options. But Furman, ironically, Tim Sarles, who was the quarterback at Jefferson County High School back in the late 70s when it first opened, he signed with Furman and was the quarterback at Furman, I guess, in the early 80s. And he was the former offense coordinator for probably the last 15 years or so here. And, I guess that's one of the reasons I went to Furman was because he had been there and I knew about him, had watched him, knew of the program. They had been winning with Coach Sheridan. Dick Sheridan was the coach.
Right.
Went on the visit, had a great time, and it just seemed like a good fit. So chose to go there and wasn't sure if I was going to play offense or defense there. They signed me as a, receiver DB. And then we got over here and, came to camp and we're going to put you at receiver.
Yeah.
And, and it was an adjustment. Obviously everybody's a whole lot faster in college and bigger. And, and I just felt a little bit unprepared in a lot of ways just because I hadn't been in that weight program or off-season program that a lot of kids had. The ones that played in Georgia and some other places, they were way more developed, I felt like, than I was.
Yeah.
And it took a little bit of an adjustment. And, it's really till I got to play a little bit my sophomore year, but not till my junior year did I get to play a whole lot. I didn't even letter my sophomore year. So I lettered my junior year and senior year.
Right.
And but it was a great experience for me. I think I needed a little bit of humbling and, having to persevere a little bit because things had been pretty easy, for me in high school. It was just easier.
Right.
I was always one of the better ones. And so it was good for me to have to suffer a little bit, if you will, and work through something that was hard. And I think, and that's, I think, allowed me to be a little bit more, empathetic, I think, with kids that it doesn't come as easy to right away, at this level, because you just don't know, Every year I felt like at Maryville, there were kids that as freshmen, you'll think this kid right here will never, ever play a down at Maryville High School. And by the time they got to a senior, they were starting.
Right.
And they'd figured it, they just improved and stuck with it. And, there's a place for those guys on your team. And it's the same thing here at Furman. They may not be a starter, but you can figure out a way to contribute if you'll stick with it and work and figure out ways to get better every day.
Right.
Well, Coach, obviously you played at Furman. You guys won a national championship too one year.
We
correct?
did. My senior year, we beat Georgia Southern out in Pocatello, Idaho.
Oh yeah.
We traveled all the way to Idaho to
Okay.
play a national championship game against Georgia Southern.
Right.
And we were really good on defense that year. We had a linebacker, Jeff Blankenship, who was the National Player of the Year. And, the offense, Frankie DeBusk was our quarterback, who was from Greenville, who was the Tusculum head coach until the last couple of years. And we did just enough on offense to not get beat, I guess. And defensively, we're really good. But that was a great experience for me. And then from there, I was able to transition into a graduate assistant spot. And then the team the next year in 89 was actually better than the 88 team. But Frankie tore his ACL in the first round of the playoffs.
Wow.
And that really set us back. And we got beat in the snow that year, of all places. That there was like just a snowstorm that came out of nowhere in Greenville. And we got beat in the semifinals to Stephen F. Austin, 21-20. And I think we missed an extra point. And, in the snow, but it was the dangest thing you've ever seen. There's 4 or 5 inches of snow in Greenville. We don't get much snow here, but so that was pretty unique experience.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this real quick too, and kind of pyramiding off what you just said. Joe Montana, one of the greatest quarterbacks, if not the greatest that ever played. When he was elected to the Hall of Fame, they asked him, "Hey, have you ever dreamt about this?" And he said, when I was growing up as a kid, I was in the backyard throwing footballs, dreaming about throwing the game-winning pass in the Super Bowl. He said, nobody ever dreams about getting to the Hall of Fame. So,
Sure.
So I want to ask you kind of the same type of question, only a different way. when did you know you wanted to be a coach? Because obviously kids that play high school football or college football, they don't think, hey, someday I'm going to be a coach. So what was it for you that said, hey, I think this coaching thing is really what I want to do?
It wasn't until I kind of realized that I wasn't going to get to keep playing, because my goal was to go play in the NBA and then the Major League Baseball and the NFL. It really was. I didn't have and I did well in school because my parents made me. It was, you're going to make A's and a few B's, or, you're not going to get to play ball and that kind of stuff. And it really, I'm not until my senior year, really after my playing days at Furman, did I decide, coaching might be something I'd like to do. And I loved my college coaches. I loved Coach Kisbeth, my high school coaches, but just being around the college coaches and how they interacted with each other and with us. And I loved the strategy and learning more about the game. That's when I really decided, hey, I'd like to try this. Now, like I said, I've never in a million years dreamed it would have gone the way it has. I was just hoping to have a job, hoping to figure out a way to, to make a living, where you could, have a family someday. And I've been more than blessed that way. But like I said, my parents really kind of, I don't want to say they discouraged me, but I think they encouraged me to maybe do something else, to where you got a chance to make some money, because they were both teachers,
right?
Yeah. And both in education.
What was your major in college?
I started off in business.
Okay.
And then I ended up going to political science.
Okay.
And what I was going to do with that is, who knows?
That's right.
Because I had thought about law school, but I knew that wasn't me.
Right.
And, and I interviewed when I graduated. I had some interviews with some banks. I had like a second or third interview with it's one of the South Carolina bank, the major ones. I can't even remember which one it is.
Right.
But, and the guy looked at me and says, I don't think you want to be in banking. Because I obviously didn't do a great job of showing my excitement. And I was like, I think you're right. And then I started trying to figure out a way, because I did not get my teacher certification when I was going through my undergrad.
Right.
And so then I, talked to Coach Satterfield, who was head coach at that time, about being a graduate assistant. And there was not anything open at the time. And so I had figured out a way that I was going to probably, have to, take some classes locally to get certified to teach, and then earn my way back in, or work my way back into being a graduate assistant, which he said I could. There just wasn't the space at that time.
Mm-hmm. And
then one opened up the following summer. Like I graduated in the summer or I guess June of '89, and then July or August, and GA opened up, and I was able to get it and get my teacher stuff that way. And the goal all along was to be a college coach.
Right.
I did not want to be a high school coach.
Right.
Really?
And just because I didn't want to teach.
Right.
I was like, I watched those guys that I was playing for, all they did was football. They didn't have to teach classes.
Right.
And, but once I got into the high school part of it, I was like, this is awesome. This is great. And really thought I'd do it forever.
Right. So, take me back to that first GA job. Then what position group were you working with primarily, and what were your first impressions being on that side as a coach as opposed to a player? Did you love it right away, or was there maybe that couple first year or so take some getting used to?
I worked Bobby Johnson, he was the defense coordinator at Furman at the time, who later became the head coach at Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
Right. I worked with him. So I worked on the defensive side and ran the scout team, the scout drew up cards, all those things. But I learned so much from him sitting in those meetings, because you come off the practice field. We filmed some, nothing like we do now.
Mm-hmm.
So you come in and watch a little bit of the practice that you filmed, and then you go back to watching your opponent and whatever it was we were working on for that next practice, whether it was long yardage, short yardage, or whatever. And and just sitting in those meetings, I learned so much that I never dreamed, was going on, because when you're playing, they call a play and you run it.
Right.
You didn't really know why you did everything. And, but I really enjoyed it. I knew, I was an okay player, but I knew that I wasn't good enough to be playing the NFL or any of that stuff. And, so when I got an opportunity to coach, and like I said, I was really close to a lot of them in age, so it wasn't like I had a huge responsibility, dealing with players.
Right.
And so I didn't try to go throw my weight around with those guys because I was a year older than a lot of them.
Yeah.
Right. But at the same time, I think I use that GA part of it just to pick up the knowledge and the, just being around and watching how those guys dealt with players and dealt with whatever problems may be coming along. Or, we didn't have a ton of discipline issues at Furman. But if you did have one, just watch how they dealt with those and, and try to implement, that in my later coaching years.
Yeah.
But it was a great experience, something that I wouldn't have traded, because I had zero responsibilities, as far as I didn't have a family. I got to live with Coach Hendricks, who's the head coach now, and we were roommates, and that's kind of how we became close. And, we've stayed close all these years, and we lived together. We were actually on campus, so we were kind of like dorm dads, I guess, if you will. And so we didn't have to pay anything. I did work in the cafeteria some, scraping dishes. That's how I got a lot of my meals paid for. I actually got a little bit of check from that. And then I was able to get certified to teach during that time as well. But it was a life changer, just because if I hadn't done that, who knows where I would have ended up. And just all the connections that you earn, that you developed, whether it was people coming in working camp in the summer that you were able to be around, or, little coaching conventions or clinics, it's just, it shaped me in a whole lot of ways. And like I said, being around Coach Johnson, being around Coach Sarles and Coach Fowler, who was my position coach, it just changed and I think shaped a lot of the things I did later on in life.
Let's step ahead now to being at Furman, and what was it that you spent so much time at Maryville, you achieved so much, and I'm sure there were other years before last year when either the itch to go to college was there, or maybe a college might have approached you, but why now? What was it that told you, hey, this is the right time?
Sure. I think the fact that it was Clay Hendricks,
right?
I really trusted him. I've watched people make the jump, or heard of it, and just really, watch them kind of suffer with it a little bit. And because it's a different animal, just from the time standpoint. And I really wanted to be around somebody I trusted, and Clay is a family guy. I mean, Clay, we work. I mean, during the season, we were there every morning at 7:30, and we went, I was home by 8:00 or so, which sounds like a lot, but it could be a whole lot worse.
Sure it could,
just because those guys, but like Clay says, we don't want to work just to work. We want to have a purpose, and let's get in here. Let's get our work done. Let's be fresh. I want you all to see you kids grow up. And if your kids want to come to practice, bring them to practice, those sort of things, much the way we did it at Maryville.
Right.
And, like I said, that was one of the reasons, because it was Clay, I think being, my alma mater, that was important to me.
Right.
And I don't know, I think it had gotten a little bit, what else could we do at Maryville? And it was really never about that. But I think some of that negativity had kind of crept into my mind a little bit, if we don't win a state championship, which we hadn't the last 2 years, it's almost like, we had failed,
Right.
or I can remember the last banquet, I guess last year in 16. I'm trying to think. That group of kids were, I think, 57-2.
Right.
As for 4 years, and it was almost like they were 2-57. It was just a kind of a downer. And I was like, maybe it is time to go try something else, and maybe, maybe those kids needed to hear something from somebody else.
Right.
My voice had probably become a little stale, and maybe it was just time for them to get a different perspective on things. And obviously Derek is, just a great person, great coach, and obviously did a great job this year. So I just think it felt like it was time. And I'm always been kind of a go with my gut kind of guy. Leslie and I prayed about it. We really felt like it was, this was a good move for our family as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so this was, I guess those are just a few of the reasons why we decided, that this was the one we would pick. And,
Sure.
And since I've been here, I don't think there's been a day that I've regretted coming over here. It's just, like I said, Leslie's family's close by. Both of her grandparents she was really close to them growing up. She lived with them when she was in high school because her mom had remarried and moved to Florida, and they were gracious enough to let her stay in South Carolina. And they both passed away this fall. So she was able to spend, this summer and whatever amount of time this fall with her grandparents. And that was special to her. So maybe that was why we got moved down here. Who knows?
Yes, that's right. That's awesome.
Yeah. So, there's lots of reasons, but it's been a great move for our family, and we've really enjoyed it.
Right. So besides the obvious difference in the college and high school game, for you personally, what has been your feelings on the differences of going from being a head coach to, either a position coach or coordinator, just in terms of, I know there's a lot of different responsibilities, but just how have you felt about the change? Do you miss the head coaching life, or do you kind of, is it good to take a step back and work on something else?
I think it was really good for me to not be the head coach.
Right.
I enjoyed, and I told Coach Hendricks, I said, Coach, I'm willing to help, able, whatever you need me to do, but it was fun to have somebody else go talk to the media, after practice or before practice or after the games. If there was a problem, I could offer my advice, but it was coach's decision, and I didn't mind that at all. So it was really, I think, an enjoyable year. Last year's offense coordinator, Drew Cronick, I had a big voice. I think, he and I would sit down and talk, and, and he would listen to my ideas and thoughts on Saturdays. And, but it was good. Just, I don't know, kind of easing in a little bit. I always felt like it was the next step. Everybody says, hey, high school football, college football, they're the same thing. And there's a whole lot of it that's similar. There really is, but it's different. Trust me. It's different. And for example, I think in high school, you might get one or two looks, on that you'll face on defense, and in college, you're just going to get a lot more. You're going to get several different, the coaches, that's all they do. They're not coaching math during the day and then going out and just, coaching a little football in the afternoon. It's what they do. They're trying like crazy to find ways to scheme you up and, and to stop you. So this was a good first step. Hopefully this is the next step, getting to be the coordinator this year. But like I said, it's been fun. I've learned a lot. Some of the things that we always just did at Maryville. I think we're way more detailed here at Furman than we were at Maryville.
Mm-hmm.
And, and I don't think one's right or wrong necessarily. And I told Coach Ellis, I was like, the stuff we just did when we called this play, well, now we tag it with everything, or we have a name for that. We don't just do it.
Right.
And, which is good. It keeps everybody on the same page. But, I think it takes you a little bit more studying You had to be ready to go each day for practice. You couldn't just show up and say, hey, this is what we're going to do. You had to kind of be ready. But I like that. Like I said, it was a great learning experience for me.
Yeah. How does, based on what you just said about the looks that you might get, obviously you've had a little bit of time to think since you've been named offensive coordinator, and it'll be a while before spring practice starts. But how is the difference in the college game and what you're going to face on defenses next fall on Saturdays change the way that you're going to call plays? And what I mean by that is, you had your way of calling them at Maryville, but now you're going to have to maybe be a little bit different, right?
Right. And that's a great question, and the one that I've thought quite a bit about. And I mentioned earlier, I've kind of always gone with my gut, whether it's life decisions or calling a crazy football game. And I still want to be that way to a degree. But watching Drew and what we did last year, we scripted quite a few things. Like we had our, first 10, we had our 10-play script. And then we go in at halftime and, we'd have our first 5, that we had pretty much script coming out. And I don't know that we'll continue doing that. But I did think he was a little bit more organized maybe than I had been. When in the past, I knew that I wanted to show these formations,
right?
In the first 5 or so plays, and then go from there. So I think, it'll probably be more formational with what I want to do next year, starting off a game and seeing how teams are going to play that,
right.
Because you get a pretty good idea in the first series how teams are going to play you, if they're going to play you different.
Right.
This year we got really 2 teams, Sanford and VMI, that gave us totally different looks than what they had played during the season. And we're going to run a lot of the same things we did last year as far as option game, and I agree, we ran some option at Maryville, maybe not as much, or a different kind, I guess, than what we run here. But I think the style of offense we ran last year, you knew you were going to get these looks, because if you didn't, we're going to run the fullback to death, till you just had to stop it.
Right.
And so that was, it was good, just to be prepared. And like I said, I think my preparation will be a little bit better going through this past season than it would have been if I'd have been the offense coordinator last year.
Right.
Just coming straight out of high school. I just think I'll have a better understanding of what to expect from defenses. And like I said, I hadn't done it before at this level. And but I'm excited about it. Coach Hendricks, we're actually, we got to hire another position coach, and we're working on that. We're going to convention tomorrow and meeting some guys on Monday. So that's been fun, talking to some other guys, getting some ideas, about what they had done at wherever they were, and, and then going from there. But looking forward to spring practice. I'm a whole lot more confident, I think, right now in myself and what we were doing than I would have been this time last year if he just brought me in and said, hey, you're the offense coordinator. Have at it.
Let me ask you this. This is something I've always kind of been interested in, just watching football, especially at the college and pro level. As an offensive coordinator this coming season, do you plan on being on the sideline or in the booth? And what do you think there's an advantage or disadvantage to one or the other? Because you see a lot of guys do, there's some that prefer the sideline and some in the booth.
Yeah, I think I would prefer being on the sideline just because you can talk to the quarterback, and kind of look in their eye a little bit. Drew, we started off all our preseason scrimmages. He was in the booth last year. He and I were in the booth, both of us.
Right.
And we just felt like it was really hard to make adjustments from the booth. Mm-hmm. And, so we said, hey, Drew, you need to go down, because we used his terminology this year. We've already changed, and we knew that going into last year. We just felt like his was maybe too wordy in somewhere, and we wanted to be a little more efficient, I think, in our play calling. And but so that's why we felt like he needed to be on the field. I could go either way, but I think I'd prefer just being on the sideline, because in some ways it was a little helpless being in the box.
Sure. Right.
Last year, just because you couldn't make quick adjustments. There's times you want to be able to just yell out there, and tell the quarterback what you want them to do. And felt like we were able to do that at Maryville. But like I said, it's I think it can work either way. The whole thing is how you get everything called and taught and translated to your kids. That's the whole key.
Yep. Let me ask you a question. One other question about the differences in between high school and college. And I got a real kick out of the tweet that you sent out a few weeks ago when you were at the movies with your boys, and your youngest one asked you if you were going carooting again.
Carooting, that's right.
so based on that, how has carooting been for you? Something that you've never had to do before?
Well, carooting is relationships, and I've always felt like I was okay at that, and talking to families, talking to parents, talking to kids, that part is fine. The hard part of it is just being gone, when we had to be gone. And what Bo was talking about was those 2 weeks, basically before that, we took him to the movies. I was gone. We got in the car. I got in the car on the Monday morning after we got beat and went to Middle Tennessee, then Chattanooga, then Atlanta, all kinds of places, then got back home, I think either Thursday, and then went to the Georgia Dome on Friday and got snowed in a little bit down there for their state championship games. Then the following Sunday, we left church, drove to Memphis, and then I'm trying to think, Memphis, then Birmingham, Atlanta, south of Atlanta, back to Atlanta, Elizabethton, Tennessee, Myrtle Beach. I mean, it was just, and just one of those things. And it's not bad, and it's really fun, getting to talk to kids and sitting there with families that, kind of understand what, we're trying to sell, the importance of a great education. We're also trying to play great football, and seeing the excitement that those people, have when you're in their homes. But, that was the only part. I'm kind of a homebody. I like staying at home. I like being with my family. Yeah. And but Bo, when I came home, he said, "Dad, I don't like carooting." So that I put that out there.
That was good. I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, but he did say it just like that, and I thought it was funny. He started with CAR, for a car.
That's right.
In the car, carooting.
That's a good point. So obviously, when you were driving those long distances, like sometimes probably at night, did you ever have that Wizard of Oz feeling like, Toto, I don't think we're in Kansas anymore?
We're not in Kansas anymore. Coach Hendricks and I, we went to Memphis, and then we left Memphis. It was actually Jackson, and drove that night. This was a Sunday night about 10 o'clock, and we drove to Tupelo, Mississippi.
Mm-hmm.
We spent the night there, and then we spent the whole day and part of the night in Birmingham. And then we left Birmingham late at night and went to Atlanta. And we pulled in Atlanta, and we couldn't find a hotel room. It was the weirdest thing. I don't know why, but we were in north of Atlanta, and it's like 1:30 or 2 o'clock in the morning. And I looked over at him and said, "What in the world are we doing?" But we had to be somewhere that next morning early. But that was really, and like I said, I love being around Coach Hendricks. And like I said, he and I are really good friends. That's the whole key, is liking who you're being around and enjoying that. Because if you didn't enjoy who you were with, I really think this would be a miserable existence, because you spend a lot of time with those guys, and you better enjoy who you're with. And I think what we have here is something pretty special. And hopefully we can, win more games, and this year we're 8-5, and hopefully there'll come a time when we're disappointed with 8-5.
Right.
That we're playing in the national championship game, which is on right now. James Madison and North Dakota State. That's the goal anyway.
Yeah. So last thing on recruiting, real quick, and I don't want to put you on the spot too bad here, but let's say that I'm an 18-year-old running back coming out of high school. Maybe I'm talking to Wofford or Davidson or a few other schools. Just give me the quick, rundown of what Furman has to offer, why I should come to Furman.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, you get, like I said, the great education.
Right.
Education needs to be important to you. And, in other words, we can get a kid in, he better have a 3.0 minimum in his core at a good school, in 22, 23, on the ACT. And those are kind of minimums. Now, we can get a couple in, but they better be able to speak, and communicate. But like I said, education needs to be important to you.
Okay.
You get a chance to come and live in a great city,
right?
Top 10 destination in the country. If you're a running back, you've come to the right spot.
Okay.
I think we led the conference last year in rushing. You're going to get plenty of opportunities to run it from different places, whether you're in the eye, whether you're in the slot. We're going to get you the ball. You're going to have chances to run it. It's not just you're not coming to a place where we're going to drop back and throw it 50 times a game.
Okay.
And, and then you're playing the facilities. Our facilities they're some of the best in FCS level. We have a $15 million building. This was the third year we were in it.
Yeah.
And it was 85% of it was paid for by former players.
Wow.
Which is unheard of.
Wow.
Which that tells you a couple of things. One, that we have former players that they had a great experience and they still love Furman University. And the other thing it tells you is they've been successful and have the means to give back, to their cause.
Right.
And so, those are just a few of the reasons why, Furman's such a great place. And like I said, it's we talk all the time about, it's not just a 4-year decision. It's a 40-year decision.
Yeah.
It's a decision that's going to shape the rest of your life. And you want to set yourself up, to have as many advantages as possible. And, the Furman advantage is something that is real, we feel like.
Right. Absolutely. So, well, listen, we've obviously talked a lot about coaching your career. What we want to do is finish up here, like we do with all our guests, with a little rapid fire segment here. So we're going to just give you some questions, just quick, whatever comes to your mind. It could be a either or anything like that, but just kind of have our viewers get to know you a little better and have some fun. Is that all right?
Okay, sure.
Okay, let's do it. So first one, growing up as an athlete, who is one person you had the poster on your wall as a kid?
Eric Dickerson.
Eric Dickerson, all right.
Eric Dickerson, okay.
Yes.
What was go ahead.
I loved him.
Yeah.
I mean, I loved the Rams. I don't know why. Their uniforms. I always thought they were cool. And then when he came there, I remember the day he broke or went over, I guess, 2105 or 2103, one of those two, went over OJ's record. And, man, he was so smooth and you couldn't beat the Bears, but true. He was smooth.
That's true. All right. What was your favorite Christmas present as a kid?
We got a ping pong table one year.
Yeah.
All right.
We wore it out.
Yeah. All right. A current TV show that you'd most like to make a cameo in?
Oh, Big Bang Theory.
Yeah.
All right.
That's good.
That's a good show.
Yeah. We accidentally watched my father-in-law watch it. I was like, what is he laughing at? And I was like, this is the craziest show ever. Well, I started watching it, and it's good. It's those writers are amazing. I'd put it ahead of Seinfeld, and I was a huge Seinfeld guy.
Well, that's
Big Bang it's out there, buddy.
Yeah, that's our debate. We're in the same camp as you, but I still have to give the edge to Seinfeld. I don't know.
Yeah, I can see it, but like I said, they're just so funny. I mean, they're so clever with their humor.
What would be one person, if you had the opportunity to, across history, that you would like to sit down and have lunch with?
Ooh, I think Ronald Reagan.
Okay.
I remember the day he got shot.
Mm-hmm.
And right outside, I guess it was in D.C., the day of the national championship basketball game.
That's right. Yeah.
I think I was probably in 6th grade or something like that, 7th grade, sometime in there. And, but he was such a positive leader. I don't know. And I guess the older I get, being a political science guy, but I think he would be a neat guy just to sit down and talk to. And who knows what we'd talk about. But, I just think he was a great leader for us.
Right. As a coach, day game or night game?
I like the day game.
Okay.
Especially in college.
All right.
Because in high school, you had the school day that would kind of occupy your time and, get you through it. In college, you don't have that. And I'm telling you, waiting on a night game is rough, because you watch a lot of games. You're almost like, what do you do all day to keep your guys occupied? So I like getting up and playing. Those 12-30 games are the best ones.
Yeah.
All right, as an offensive coordinator now, would you rather have 1st and 10 or 2nd and 1?
I like 2nd and 1.
Okay.
And take a shot.
Right.
We're not going to line up and run the fullback on 2nd and 1 unless we're ahead late in the game.
That's right. Unless you're trying to milk that clock, right?
Yeah, you got 2nd and 1, the whole playbook's open.
There you go.
All right.
There you go.
All right. So for our last one here, it's going to be a little different. We always like to end with the top 5. So today is going to be your top 5 coaches of all time. And this can be, or top 5 football coaches of all time. This could be college, high school, pro. You don't have to rank them in any order, but just 5 guys you can look at either. Maybe you've known them from afar and say, hey, that's a really great coach.
Well, you can't go wrong with Saban. What he's done for so long in this era.
Yep.
Belichick, with free agency, how they keep doing it over and over and over is just amazing to me. I was always I like Spurrier.
Yeah.
I loved watching his teams. I thought they were entertaining. I thought he was very innovative, unafraid to try some new things. So I thought that was great. Bill Walsh.
Of course, yes.
What they, because they were bad, and when I was growing up, San Francisco was bad. And the next thing you know, they were a dynasty.
Yeah.
And so obviously Bill Walsh is pretty special. And then let's see, that's 4.
One more.
I got to go with Coach Johnson, Bobby Johnson. Like I said, I was able to GA for him. A man of, very, very high intelligence, very high integrity. Won at Furman, set him up to win at Vanderbilt. I think James Franklin benefited greatly from Coach Johnson's players when he got to Vandy. So those are 5, and I'm sure I could come up with some more, but
right. That's good.
I'm happy with those 5.
That's good.
Last question, and this has nothing to do with the rapid fire. Just want to get your opinion. Who wins Monday night, Georgia or Alabama?
I'd love to see Georgia win.
We would too.
I'm afraid Alabama's going to win. I don't know. I think they've got a little bit of a chip on their shoulder that they hadn't had before. Usually they're the hunted,
right?
And now they're getting to hunt a little bit.
Yep.
And I think they're very, very similar. But they're talented, maybe better on the outside. Who knows?
Yeah.
But I think both of them are really, really good. The best 2 teams are playing. You wouldn't have said that going into it, but after those first playoff games, I think the best 2 teams are playing. But I'm for Georgia. I'm kind of afraid Alabama may win, though.
Yeah. Well, that's I kind of agree with you on that one. I'm in 100% agreement. Well, Coach, we certainly have appreciated you coming on. We've enjoyed the conversation. It's been a lot of fun, and I hope you enjoyed it as well.
Absolutely.
Well, I've enjoyed it. Love the Mirandas.
Well, thank you.
Well, we love you too, and we can't think of a better person to be around and to have the success that you've had, and we wish you the same success, if not greater, in the coming years at Furman.
Well, thank you, guys. I really appreciate it.
All right, Coach, you take care.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
And that'll do it for today's episode. Again, thanks to George Quarles for joining us. Best of luck to him in the Furman football program this coming year. And again, let's thank our sponsor, Bonus Room Art. And we will be back on the Press Box Podcast with episode 10 before you know it. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at PressBoxPod and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes to get the latest episodes as soon as they are posted. So again, for Ralph, this is Joseph signing off on the PressBox Podcast. We'll see you soon.